Wow. 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 Thank you for the three of you that are joining. Uh, oh my gosh. I'm actually glad that three of you are here. I had, the room was full of people and there was like nothing that I could do. Oh my gosh. I was so close to tears. Wow. It's gonna probably take me just a second to get centered again because that was really not something that I wanted to experience at all. Sometimes it's just really good to just not mess with what's already going on. I wish OBS software was a little bit more user-friendly or that there were better tutorials, but there's not. This is a very basic streaming service, and I appreciate that it's here. I'm really appreciate that Restream was here. But there was a couple other things at OBS that I would be able to do. I could move through things quicker as we go through the different verses and being able to change between web pages. This one is a little bit clunky, and sometimes it doesn't always follow. But I should have just stuck with it because so far it's done really good. So if I'm a little teary-eyed, it's because I got myself a little frustrated because I'm going to go through the stuff today. I really wanted to join and do it at 10 o'clock. And some of you have been waiting so patiently. So I love you so much. And I guess I'm just going to chalk this up to experience. Instead of being upset, it's just one of those things that I don't know. I'm just gonna laugh at myself because it's much better than crying, and I just don't really want to do that. So, hey guys, I'm so glad you're here. So let's just start again. Boker Tov, Yom Tov, Zarim Tovim, and Lila Tov, no matter where you're at. Thank you for joining me again, sticking in with the frustration. I do want to go over a scripture with you today. Give me just a second because I was going to have to shut everything down. And right now I'm fighting with the computer because it wants to do a heavy duty Windows 10 update. And my computer is already so full of information on it that if it does the update, I may not have access to my computer. And I really don't want to have to buy a new one. I love how they kind of do those things that they do all these updates and it takes up hard drive space. And the next thing you know, you can't use your laptop anymore. Lovely, lovely, lovely. I guess it's just one of those things. We just got Ken a new computer and I'm really grateful for that, but it looks like I may have to do the same thing. So let me just take a second to pull up the scripture so I can get it on the screen, and we're going to start um, we're going to be going over John 10:27 today. So with that, while I was looking at all that, let's go ahead and do, um, let's go ahead and do, uh, I'm just, you know what? I'm just going to pray right now. All right. That's probably just the thing that I just need to do so that I can get focused. Thank you, Father, for challenges. Thank you for opportunities to be able to grow and expand myself. Thank you for opportunities that challenge me. So it gives me an opportunity to check my spirit, to see that I'm not allowing myself to go get so distorted that I can't function. Thank you that I have people here that are patient with me. And I thank you that what is going to be revealed today in the scripture is such a beautiful thing. And I would ask that all of our hearts are just open and ready to receive through the Spirit, that would be opened up to what is needing to be shared within all of us so that change can take place and that we can move forward with these beautiful truths that you're revealing through your sacred languages to us. I'm grateful that we have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, and we can actually make this manifest in our today and being able to practically apply it by taking in more light, more information, more of the codes that are within the sacred letters themselves, so that we can shift into a higher gear, be able to increase our levels of consciousness, take in more light, therefore for affecting our entire surroundings, how we see the matrix, how we see ourselves within it, and how we see one another as we are entering into this oneness unity. And I say this in the frequency of the name of Yeshua, through everything that that name embodies, that we embody through that name, that we too have that within us. And I say that through my own authority. Amen. Okay. Now I'm a little better. I was even doing some wonderful meditation before we even started. So thank you guys for hanging in. I see that I have 10 now. So let's go ahead and jump into this verse. I did wanted to just lay some groundwork out for you guys if this is the first time that you have joined us. I know that if you've been here before, this is going to be repetition, but Hebrew and the way it works is through inculcation. So when we are referring to the Hebrew language, understand that this is teaching us the divine masculine principle. It's very linear in thinking. So as we learn, like even going through the basic letters, we would learn the Aleph, Bet, Dalet, Gimel, so and so. It would be linear, one letter at a time, having all of those meanings. And when we take a look at the Hebrew scriptures, it really has the divine masculine aspect to it. Now, when we go over to the Aramaic, this is the divine feminine aspect of it. And it's more spiral in thinking. So if you think about constructing our temple, as that's what our vehicle design is, it is a temple. As we are constructing our own vehicle design, we have to have the linear fashion to put the foundation in, to build up the sidewalls, the roofing structure. It's all linear in design, but we don't want to leave the house, the temple, empty. So then comes in the spiral aspect of the divine feminine and then fills it all up so our vessel is made complete. These two languages are meant to be married to one another so that we have the fullness of our becoming in activating our Merkaba, which is our light body, so that all the chakras are connected. And I should say too that some of this information that I'm sharing, if you're joining me and you're still within the confines of Christianity, I mean no disrespect. Some of the things that I am speaking of are going to challenge some of those doctrines. And so if you're a brave one and you're willing to enter in to listen to these things, welcome. I love to ask or have people ask me questions so I can clarify. But again, I just wanted to give a foundation of the purpose of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, because it is all connected to the sacred wedding. The Hebrew ancient sacred wedding is meant to marry us within ourselves. This is activating all the chakras, so all the energy centers are flowing up and through that activate our crown chakra, which allows our Merkaba to then activate our light body. This is going to be very important in days ahead, and this is how we can do it. Many people will find this during meditation as well. Sometimes it takes 30 to 40 years, and one of the reasons why we wanted to bring the sacred languages is it can be done in a much quicker fashion if you have a spirit that is open and teachable to be able to receive these truths, because the codes, these frequencies that are within the letters themselves, when digested through the eyes and then being able to be spiritually discerned, placed within the heart, and then activated through the body, floods the body with more light. More light is more information. More information helps us increase our levels of consciousness so that we can receive more. It helps take us out of that lower beast frequency into the higher activation, which allows the Mashiach or Mashiach anointing, Christ anointing, to be activated within us out of the lower densities. So hopefully you guys are following all of that. I did want to let you guys know that I am trying to put myself out there on a couple other different channels. So we'll see what happens. Again, some of this technology, I'm fairly savvy, but I guess apparently not savvy enough. So I don't know. It just makes me laugh. Anyway, so without further ado, now that we laid the foundation between divine masculine, divine feminine, Hebrew and Aramaic, let's go into the verse itself. I'm going to show it to you first on the Peshitta, and then I'm going to bring us into the worksheet that I did in Word, simply because it's a lot easier for me to be able to teach from that, because there is so much information, and I just don't want to miss out on sharing these beautiful nuggets with you. So now that we've been in this 10 minutes, we've had enough. Well, I have 10 in the room that I can see with the studio here in Restream. Hopefully others have found us from different platforms, but I'm happy that the 10 that I see are here. I appreciate your presence. All right, so John 10:27, my sheep hear my voice and I know them and they follow me. This is a verse that many of us are very, very familiar with. And there's some just really beautiful truths with this. it's interesting to see when you look at the different coding, the different words that you find within the letters themselves in the frequency that is being emitted from these sacred languages. I do want to add something else before we go. This is something that you may or may not know. If you've been with me for a while, please hang in there. Each Hebrew letter is constructed from other letters, unlike English, where an A is an A B is a B. This letter I highlighted here is the ayin. And the ayin, as the symbol, is actually constructed from three other letters. I call them the constituent letters that took their vibrational frequencies, joined together, and all of that information is encoded within the single symbol ayin. You don't see it, but that is why Hebrew and Aramaic are much like a shorthand way of communicating these truths to you. Because really, if we were to write this thing out, we would probably have, oh, I don't know, 10 Encyclopedia Britannica sets. And I don't think any of us would want to dive into that. So when you learn the coding system, when you begin to see the letters within the letters, and then when you see the words that are within the words, you can see that all of these vibrational frequencies from these individual letters came to form these words that are they're taking this information and they're transferring it in and within us for inward manifestation, inner standing, just completely changing us from the inside out, because that's really where the work is coming from anyway. It's from the inside. It's not from the outside. It's from the inside, hence why we were told that the kingdom is within. So this is the activation of making the kingdom and expand within us and expand our entire being. All right. I don't think there's anything else that I need to say. So let's start taking a look at all the words. I did want to say too that if you guys are interested in asking questions, it would be helpful if you guys would be able to put those all in caps for me. Then that way, when I am looking at the stream itself and looking at the comments, I can see if you guys have anything that you need to say to me so that I can answer it on a more thorough measure. So it looks like everybody, there we go. I can see that there are no questions at this point. Wonderful. Let's move on. I am going to take you into the document itself. And so I need to do a different share here. So hang tight with me as I go back into the ability to bring this forth, and hopefully it'll allow me to. And it doesn't look like it's going to. That is so wonderful. Well, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So, at least that's what my dad always said. So I'm going to be going back and forth with my notes, and then we'll be popping in and out, and it'll be a little bit more frustrating on my side, but we're going to get this done. I am determined to get this verse done today. And I'm not one of those people that take a look at it and say that the enemy is stopping me from doing this, because I don't believe in that. I actually believe that it's a construct within my mind that I am learning from. So that's kind of my thought on that. So popping back and forth as I'm looking at this, in the very first word, we're going to talk about the definition of this. So simply, this is sheep, to make it something simple in the way they translate it. It's interesting that it's just sheep, because there's another or Aramaic word that's amra, Aleph Mem Resh Aleph, which is also sheep and also lamb. And that is the word that is mainly translated for when we hear the Lamb of God. But this is another word for sheep. So we're not talking about Amra, because that actually has to do with the word. This is something else a little different, because since it was from the root Amar, the other sheep, the ones that are like the Lamb of God in that reference, that has to do with mother raising us, and it has to do with the word itself. So this is an entirely different word. And really, the crazy thing is in English, they would not have translated it any differently. You would have not known that it was an entirely different word. You wouldn't have known whether it was amra or this word. You'd have no idea. And again, I can't speak the languages, and I can't read them like a book. And I know that sounds probably ridiculous to you, But my husband and I were given a knowing of being able to see the letters, to interpret them, and to see what's going on. And the process of being able to speak them as a language has not yet come, but I know it is coming. So for any of you that think you have to learn it to read it like a book, I am letting you know that you do not have to. We don't, and and the crazy things, that beautiful things that are revealed to us, we don't even have any Jewish people in our family, so Spirit has given this to us completely. So in looking at this, we have an Ein, this is a Resh, and a Bet, and an Aleph. So going back to the screen so that we can take a look at it, here it is, and it's the exact same as the root itself. Nothing has changed, as we can see the root, and the manifestation is the same. So let's see what's hidden in here, because this is what's really important, is the hidden words. So the first thing that I want to point out to you is the Ein Resh Bet. This is a Hebrew word here, as well as an Hebrew or an Aramaic word, that means to vouch for, to be surety for, to set, and then it also has other implications, like to do late in the evening, in the evening, but it also means to be well mixed, to be sweetened, spiced, sweet, and pleasing. So there is a lot to this word. And when we take it back to the Hebrew roots of this, it means to intermix. It also does have the connotation of as to traffic, as by barter, and also to give as a security, as a kind of exchange. Same word, same spelling, same three letters, Ein Resh Bet, with all of that information. So when we take a look at that, when it talks about the sheep, one of the other aspects of it is simply that it means that they are to be darkened. So we're talking about those that have not been revealed as light as of yet. Because again, what are we doing? We are compressing light within us. So eventually we are going to be highlighted. And I do believe this is going to happen because of the verses I've looked at, the Mount Transfiguration. I've looked at the verse that says that we would be changed in the twinkling of an eye. I shared with you again another verse the other day that had the same word chalaf, Het lamed pay, that means to transmute and alter. And I've seen it time and time again. And I've also seen that light is literally, our blood is congealed light. And I have shared that with you too. You can go back into our videos and take a look at the titles, and you can find that yourself. So are those who are dimmed, but they are pleasing and they are sweet. They are being vouched for. They are surety. They're well mixed. So you think about it, when the tribesmen were scattered abroad from the original, when the northern kingdom was defeated, and when the southern kingdom was defeated, Israel and Judah, they got dispersed throughout the entire world. They lost their entire identity. They lost everything that made them who they were as the tribesmen. They lost their language, they lost their worship system, and they essentially got assimilated into the world. Well, because we got assimilated well into the world, we became mixed and intermixed. And it's interesting too, because if you see the way we have been within the world, we have actually been trafficked as well in having the addition of our social security numbers, how they trade us as a commodity. I'm not going to go into those other details, because there's plenty of information that you can go on other channels to see that. But just know that we have been trafficked, whether we want to think of it or not, and it is connected to our social security numbers if you are listening within the United States. So one of the other things that we are seeing in this word, because again, there are words within the words that give us more information, as I'm going to talk about the Ein Resh here. And the Ein Resh means to awake, to be wakeful. And it also talks about a laurel, which is the foliage of a bay tree woven into a wreath or crown and worn on the head as an emblem of victory or mark of honor. So regardless of the trafficking that has happened to us and the way we have been intermixed and lost our identity, This has something to do with us waking up to be the ones who are wakeful, that are no longer sleeping, and it has to do with a mark of honor and victory. I don't know about you guys, but to see that, to know that in the first word, this makes me super excited to dive into the rest of this. Now let's move into the second word that is hidden. And again, the only reason why I know these things is I've been studying the languages for 5 years. And so my eyes are already looking to see what has been hidden. Because again, every single letter that combines together with another letter brings forth a new resonance frequency that is being added into the word itself. And there is no way that the translators, if they hadn't known the language, they wouldn't have known to dive in to pull these things out to extract it. So they tried to shove all this information into one word, sheep, but it has all this other information in it. So why is the resh bet so important? Well, the resh bet is important because it means to multiply and have abundance. That's exciting. So those who have been dimmed are going to be multiplying and they're going to be in abundance. Well, of course, because more of us are waking up to what is going on. So this definitely would apply to us. It also has another hidden word within it, and it means it's the bet aleph, and this word means to come and to go. So as the sheep are coming and going, they are going to be multiplying in abundance. They are the wakeful ones that are crowned. They are wearing a crown that is not necessarily seen, but there's a light laurel. Think of the keter. So if you know anything about the tree of life and taking a look at the different sephirot, the very top sephirot is the crown. So this laurel is connected to that which is on our head, connected to the crown chakra, which is, when it's activated, it's an emblem of victory or a mark of honor. How incredible to be able to see that. And it's about us coming and going, those who are crowned. So I'm already excited about that. But let's go into a little bit deeper here because every letter has a meaning. So knowing this information about the sheep, what is it also telling us? Well, these sheep are those who have been given the eyes to see. And again, I'm going to through here the letters that make up the symbol because every single letter has those constituent letters. So if you're wondering where I'm getting this from, the first symbol itself is the I in Paleo Hebrew. And so inside Ein Yod Nun, this is what we have. The sheep are those that have the eyes to see. They've been given power on the inside, which is a door that they must open inward to reveal the weak and feeble place that they have within in order to deliver themselves from their fallen flesh nature. They are and will be the head. They were poor and destitute, but they have been raised up to become the head, the chieftains, the top, the utmost highest, the first fruit leaders who have built their temple through the 222 journey, the two paths of the 22 letters of Hebrew and Aramaic, the teachings of mother and father, which is the spiritual path that allows them to build their temple as a highly spiritual matter and build themselves on the inside as connected to family. And they are as and the Aleph means those who have been instructed and they teach. The yoked and tamed the beast nature. They are associated to as family, carrying the thousandfold Mashiach, Christ anointing, as the teaching shepherds that have been given the staff of authority and the mouth to speak, in having the authority to speak through the sacred languages that bring forth the revelation. That's who we're talking about, the sheep. And right now they've been dimmed and they are on the dusky side. But they are also those that are well mixed. They have been sweetened and spiced up, and they are pleasing. So that is a really good start on this verse, and hopefully that you guys were able to track with that. I'm going to pop over to the live stream and see if you guys have any questions. And if you don't, and it doesn't look like you do, that's wonderful. We will continue on. So again, it's always important when you're looking at the verse that we see what the first word is, because then it determines the course of the rest of the entire verse. So moving on to the next word, we are going to pop back over, and hopefully you guys are seeing it, and we will see if if we can move through this. It's the Dalet Yod Lamed Yod. And in the they have said it is just own. So now the next word is own. But again, there's some wonderful secrets that are connected and contained in here. So the root of it is a Dalet Yod Lamed. And when we take a look at that, I'm going to highlight it here for you so you can see it. Dalet Yod Lamed. And we can see already we have the Yod added on the suffix side. So prefix side has to do with mother's teaching. Mother teaches us what we need to grow up and mature. If we were teaching a child, this would be from the age of 0 to 12. And this is setting them up so that they could become accountable. So we've heard about the age of accountability being 12. Well, it's mother's job to raise up that child so that they can be accountable for that which they have learned. And in the days a long time ago, not that we would be doing it now, but this is all spiritual, and we must be able to see it through the spiritual lens. This is what allows a child to enter into the betrothal status, aka the bride. So when you hear the term the bride, in the Hebrew culture, that means that they were betrothed, set apart, much like you would look at in today's terminology in being engaged. The difference is in the ancient custom, if you were betrothed, you were essentially already married because there was a wedding contract, the ketubah, that was signed by both families to say that this agreement was bringing both families together. And it was already pretty much signed and sealed that this was a done deal. The Intimacy Act hadn't been completed at that point, but they were set apart through the wedding contract. And the sacred writings are that for us. And so this is, if we want to be the bride, then learning the place of accountability from 0 to 12 is something that mothers should have taught us. So the ketubah is really through the sacred writings of the Hebrew and the Aramaic. It is not in the English translation because the English translation really only has 5% of the information. And the ketubah itself, by the way, was all about protecting the bride, surrounding, protecting, and hedging in the bride. That's what it was for. So in the ketubah, we are teaching the letters that are part of the ketubah. Every single verse is part of that, which hedges us in, it builds us up, and this is how we are making our garments of light, which is our garments. If you watch the parable that I'm teaching on right now every Sabbath on Saturday through the ancient or through the parable of the wise and foolish virgins, we went over that a couple weeks ago about building our garments of light, and this is what we're doing. So having said that, I know that was a lot, but I needed to get across to you about at least the mother's side. And now with the suffix side, this is father's teaching. What father's teaching does allows you to learn intimacy so that you can become a queen. Because on the ancient Hebrew wedding, on the day of the wedding itself, when they would actually enter into the place of consummation, this is the day that those that were betrothed are called king and queen. So when anything is added onto the suffix side, this is us being prepared to become king and queen in that place of intimacy, which is da'at, gnosis, as known as Greek. This is the hidden chamber that is connected directly to the king and queen, bringing them into the intimate chambers. So you can think about entering into the holy place would be mother's teaching. Entering into the Holy of Holies would be Father's place, the intimate chambers of knowing and having communion with Creator Source. It's pretty fantastic. So I've shared that before, but I wanted to bring that forward because we have a movement on the suffix side. This first word was in its static position, meaning that there was no distortions. It was a lump of clay defining the sheep. And now we're moving into the word that has action by the additional Yod on the father's side. So this verse is talking about intimacy. This is not talking about the children that are still in the place where they haven't learned the accountability. This is those that have entered into the bride status that need to have the power to get them ready to get into the intimate chambers of that which is preparing them for that day. I hope you guys are following me. If you guys have any questions on that, I'm just going to take a look at that. Um, all right, everything looks great. 12 tribes, Claire, that's a great question. Please, if you guys do have questions, put them in caps because I don't want to miss your questions. 12 tribes, that's the same as Atlantis, right? I would believe that it was. I have some memories from the time of Atlantis, but they are very fuzzy. I have memories from being in ancient Egypt as well. And it's all connected, all of this. In fact, the sacred languages were used. Uh, the Hebrew and the Aramaic are not a new thing. They have been around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years because of the vibratory nature and frequency in them. In fact, all of the pharaohs were instructed in the initiation process through the language so that they could learn to rule from a position of 0 point energy, not having distortions either way, so that they could serve the people from a place of unconditional love, where they weren't trying to take it upon themselves in ruling and leading from a place of service to self. So just throwing that on there. That's why this is important for us to understand this if we're going to be attaching ourselves to the Melchizedek priesthood, which is kings and queens of righteousness, which is a different priesthood altogether in being able to have the da'at, the intimate knowing of the revelation of these languages that allow us to bring forth light and being teaching shepherds of light, because really the priesthood is that gives answers to the people when they are seeking question or having questions. So anyway, hopefully that helps assist that. Now let's take a look at what this word is really saying other than own, because there's a lot more to this word and just own, as you saw with sheep. We have here the Dalet Yod, the very first two letters, and I'm going to highlight them here so that you can actually see them. Let me get back here. The Dalet Yod, the first two letters. The first two letters in here mean, initially, they mean something very simple like who, which, were, and whom. So again, we are drilling down about the sheep of those we're talking about who, which ones are we talking about, the who, what, why, when, and there kind of questions. But it also has the meaning of sufficiency, plenty, enough, and enough for me. So sufficiency, plenty, enough, and enough for me. So the sheep that are entering this place, that are learning to be able to enter into the intimate chambers, they have what this is letting us know is that we need to go through the door of the inward man where we are pierced. So think of, and I'm not meaning crude here, but think of the phallus symbol in that as we are pierced, there is a seed that is being placed within us that is generating a new life within us, meaning we are being regenerated by delivering ourselves of the weak nature so the seed of life can be implanted in us, which actually produces heirship within us. I'm talking about even things, since it does affect our DNA. I've shared that before, that medically, or when they did the Human Genome Project, they actually discovered that the sacred languages were within our DNA. Very fascinating study. That we are talking about epigenetically affecting future generations, starting with our own. So this, the gesh that's on the inside is meaning to be pierced. And that's exactly what we're talking about. And so by delivering ourselves of the weak and feeble and filling ourselves up with that which will produce heirship within us, perpetuity, the seed of life in the activity of that which we do, what's the next letter? We have Yod. And Yod means the work and deed of the hand. But in its gematria, the same number. So again, backing up here, every letter has a gematria associated with it. And the Yod Dalet, the constituent letters that make up the Yod, is the same gematria as the Hebrew word kazah, which means a vision. So the Yod has to do with a vision that has been given to us so that we can take it as the work and deed of our hand. And it also means power, means and direction given through this vision so that we can be instructed. The Lamed is all about instruction, about teaching. It's also a shepherd's staff. It is a symbol of authority that then leads us to the next seed vision. So another principle to add in this, I know I'm sharing a lot, guys, but through inculcation, you're going to pick this up. So if you listen to these teachings over and over, you're going to begin to see these things, and you're going to be able to follow along a lot better than if this is the first one that you're watching. But we have a principle here called the covenant of the pieces. And what we have here is that we have two letters that are exactly the same. They are a mirror of one another, but something was added on the middle in the middle of them. If you go back to the story of Abraham, when he was having the promise made about what was going to be given to the future generations, which is us, he was told to establish a blood covenant with a seraphim messenger. Yod He Vav He is a seraphim messenger. Yod He Vav He is not source creator. Yod He Vav He is seraphim messenger, male and female, that have been instructing us, the Spirit of Truth and the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, masculine and feminine in nature, the Spirit that raises us up as the seraphim, that are coming to give us the seraphic message to figure out how to deal with the dualism that we live in, and how to mature through it and grow us up as Elohim. If you watched my broadcast yesterday, we went into great deal about the Elohim, and we discussed that Yod He Vav He was bringing forth this message. So this right here has to do with that covenant of pieces, the covenant of promise. And if you remember what happened in that blood covenant, there was a flaming torch that went between the pieces. That is a seraphim that is saying, pay attention here. There is a teaching meant to come through mother, and a teaching that's coming through father, that are powerful visions to give you what is necessary. The power, means, and direction to deliver yourself of your weak and feeble nature, which is really our ego that tells us that we're separated, that diminishes us and keeps us bound in fear, and that we need to be instructed in the way of it on the inside of us. This is really huge for us to be able to see this. And because we already saw that, it means that these teachings are sufficient and plenty enough, and enough for us as the sheep to be able to get that final yod that was added, that puts us in the active state, taking it from a lump of clay of potential into molding and shaping us, saying, you need to have this in order to become the queen, to enter into the intimate chambers of knowing, da'at, which means knowledge through experience, because this is really the path of the mystic. The mystic experiences everything through spirit and changes you from the inside out. It's like these are when the epiphany moments come, and this is what is being given to us so that we can move into that as the sheep. And I already defined that. So if you guys are joining in late, please start the stream over so you can hear the importance of the very first word and what's setting this up for the rest of this. So it's much more than own. Although this is meaning that Father is now saying, these are my sheep, because they are connected to my vision and my teaching, which is going to raise them up to be kings and queens. How are we doing in the studio? You guys following that? I would love to be able to read all of your comments. I really would. Going through. I'm so glad that you guys are here. I don't know if I need to worry about Greg. It looks like there was something on there. I see, I just went back, and is the text called the Peshitta? Okay. Thank you, Renee, for sharing that. Ms. Ellie, I really appreciate that. By the way, you guys it's very helpful if those of you who have been on my channel for a while, my husband and I channel, if you have answers to these questions and somebody puts them as all caps and I'm not getting to it because I'm busy chatting, because I can't, when I go into the screen itself, the actual Peshitta, I can't see your comments, so I have no idea the questions. That's why I'm having to pop back in and out. I give you authority to be able to answer those things because you've been here for a while. You know what tools that are being used, and I really, really appreciate you greatly for assisting me, because we're raising each other up. Ken and I, what we're planning on doing is we want to be able to teach a bunch of you so that we can all be going out and being teaching shepherds of light, because there's going to be people that are going to be wanting to know this information because it does transform us. It's connected to our DNA. It changes us. It's connected to our genetics, which means epigenetically passing it on to future generations so they can access it. So Now, let's go back in. So we've already gone through the first two letters or to the two words. Let's move on to the next one because this is one that has to do with voice. And this is, I love this word. I love all the words, but I really, really love this one. So going back in, let's take a peek. We have the kuf, lamed, and the yod. I'm going to do something here first because we know that it's with voice. We're going to talk letters themselves here. The kuf is a very important letter. In looking in the paleo version of it, or the paleo or the pictograph form, we see it as a circle that has a line dividing it. And the line, this is connected really actually to Ken's compass teachings that he's doing. We will be releasing more. It's just a much longer edit process. I'm waiting for Jesse to give me the videos before I can upload them, and they take about 9 hours to load up on YouTube. It's a lot longer process. But please connect that to Ken's compass teaching, because really what it is, it's a line that divides the light from the dark. It has to do with the sun. It has to do with the horizon, that which is revealed and that which is hidden. And this is exactly about us on the light and the dark. Both of them must be experienced. Light is Mother revealing things to us and bringing light within so that the light within can reveal the things that are of the dark, which just means hidden. So if we connect that to the Yod, Fathers teach hidden, and it is only given to those who are of maturity, that have already entered into the bride status as being set apart, and that are mature enough to go into those deep teachings. This is actually what I'm sharing with you right now. We will be teaching you how to do it yourself. If you guys are already seeing this, then you already have a tremendous amount of light in you, because if you didn't, you wouldn't even be drawn to this whatsoever. So congratulations for the work that you've already done. Mother has already done a fantastic job in rearing you through whatever source you came through. And so this letter is about compressing light within the circle of time being annual, being monthly, being weekly, our whole lifetime. It depends, it's in sets. So compressing light within the circle of time, finding the narrow path that few find between the light and between the dark, which is the place of 0 point energy, when we've rendered everything clear between the light and the dark. So this is the process of our maturation by bringing in more light within us to raise up our consciousness in order to unify everything into the oneness principle so that we are up and out of the system of duality. Then we have the lamed, which again is about instruction. So this is compressing light through the instruction that gives us the Father's power. Because again, the yod has to do with power. This also has to do with giving, the open hand that gives. So again, if you have come through Mother and you've gone through light teachings, however you came through that, however it was taught in whatever beginning pathway that you started, whether it was in Buddhism, whether it was in Christianity, whether it was in years of meditation, with the scriptures, without the scriptures, whatever you did is led you to this point where you can receive the Father's teachings, because it is given to those who naturally give service to others. So when we take a look at this word and we go in, it just talks about voice, and in its root, like I was showing you, is a kuf lamed. But taking this a little bit further, kuf lamed, it also means in Hebrew to call with a loud voice. So I actually did a teaching a while ago about how the language actually calls out to people. And it did with my husband and I. And we've had previous lives where the language was part of it. I think that's why we can see it, although the full download hasn't quite happened yet. But I know that's exactly why we are able to see it and teach it. And the language, when we were first introduced to it, even like 10 years ago, really began calling to us, but we didn't shift into high gear until 5 years ago. So this means light, swift and fast, easy, and not difficult. So I wanted to share that with you, because some of you might be thinking as you're entering into this, like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. But really it isn't. When you can get the letters down themselves and can see the symbols, can see what an aleph is and a bet and the ein and the resh, as you engage in it, it really is simple. I know it doesn't seem that way, but when I saw that, I started chuckling because I was like, you know what? I can actually see that. I can actually see that because of what Ken and I have experienced. So please understand that this word, it's the previous word is telling you that this is more than enough for what you need to be empowered, and that it really is an easy thing once you begin doing it. The most difficult part is just learning the letters. And if we had learned it when we were children, children are like little sponges, they're picking up everything. So if you're in your 30s, 40s, all the way through your 70s, this does seem like it's a little bit more challenging, but it's meant to be easy. So it's already written that way. It's already encoded in the letters that it's to be that way. So I am speaking that prophetically over you, and that I'm releasing that over you through the light language, that those that have the open heart to receive will begin to see that it is actually a very easy transition to get into once you learn the letter shapes themselves. Let's see. I have some more. It looks like I can't see. I had one, I think, but I remember it not, probably for the best. Again, if you guys are making comments, please keep the comments, the questions in caps only. If you're just making comments, please put them in lowercase so that I don't get confused, because I need to pop in and out and I want to be able to distinguish the two. And my eyes are going to the caps for questions. So if there's not a question, then I would appreciate that. So anyway, let's go back to the scriptures themselves, because the letters are calling out to us with a loud voice so we can compress light. It's the instruction that is being given to us so that we can have power from the Father, which is the place of intimacy meant for the intimate chambers, the Holy of Holies, given to the kings and queens. Now we move into a very important word. It is the word here, and it is the word Shema. I love how it was written though, because there's lots of little secret things that are hidden in here. If you have the eyes to see them, you'll be very excited to be able to follow through or follow with this. So Shema is Shin Mem Ein, and this is a very common word that you see all over the place. In fact, those of you who have gone through the Hebrew Roots movement or Messianic Judaism or Judaism know this word very well. This is part of a prayer that is said every day by the people that are following those practices. And it is a word that means, I will get my notes here so I'm telling you exactly what it means. It means to hear intelligently. From the root position, it means to hear intelligently, often with implication of attention, obedience, and causatively to tell, etc. It's something that's heard. It's an announcement, a sound, but it also can be attached to, and this is from the Aramaic perspective, either a rumor as well. So when we look at it, taking it back to the Hebrew divine masculine, where we're being raised up from 0 to 12, this would be about attention and obedience. And obedience, we see it as a negative context, but really, there are principles that we are learning to be able to find out how to orient ourselves with people and with source that's on the external, so that laws are put into place so we don't break laws, so that we are safe and so that we keep other people safe. That's what the golden rule is all about, making us safe externally and others to be safe with us. So that's why the obedience is there. So a mother raising her child, there are rules of the house to keep the child safe so that they don't become service to self, spoiled brats, like my mother would say, as to why we had to have timeouts and our little swats on our behinds, because she did not want us to grow up that way. So this has the word obedience attached to it as well. But there are some things that are hidden in here, and I love this. So the first thing that is hidden in this word, um, the very first thing, let me get back so I can highlight it for you so we can see it, is the word Shem. I love Shem. So if you've heard this phrase before, Hashem is a name referring to God. And what do we see in here? We have the consuming fire and the living water teachings. Fire and water. These are essential in our maturation because the sheen has to do with our fallen flesh nature. The mem is the waters of purification. So if you want to connect to a visual, this is very helpful. The tabernacle in the wilderness was actually a picture of the laid down man before being able to rise up as a standing man. And it was a process of us to take a look at the symbolism and apply it to us in our spiritual growth. So going to the altar, the brazen altar, is actually where the animal sacrifices were done. Well, when we apply it to us, we are sacrificing our beast ego nature, our animalistic nature that puts us in the lower vibration frequencies. So anger and guilt and fear and shame, control and manipulation, all of those go onto the altar to be burned up. That's what the sheen deals with. The mem, on the other hand, has to deal with the living water teachings. And the living water teachings are that which is purifying us. And purifying is the laver. So we go to the laver to see if we are having a undistorted reflection of ourselves. If there's any distortion, if we are not in the place where we can see ourselves clearly, if there is distortion, meaning we haven't entered into the place of being purified enough to enter into the holy place, we have to go back to the altar to burn up our beast ego nature. So I see a question here. Do you know the most secret language in general? I mean, um, I will say it this way, and then we're going to get back to the Shema because this is important because there's Shem is in there, and I want to finish defining that. As far as secret languages go, the Hebrew, Aramaic, and Sanskrit are, they have found those three languages in particular have to do with cymatics, meaning they have a vibrational frequency that affects matter. You can go look up cymatics yourself. It's really fascinating to see. And these languages have been around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So I do know that occult practices, I know that through Kabbalah they study this. I know that in magic practices they use these because it does affect matter. Um, I only study Hebrew and Aramaic. I haven't gone into the Sanskrit, which is really what is used in India for their worship system. It has a high vibrational frequency, again, that affects matter. If there's other languages, I have no idea. It doesn't matter to me. I haven't gone there because I'm finding so much meat and so much change and so much light in these languages. So they are both necessary. Hebrew and Aramaic are both necessary, divine feminine and divine masculine, to unite together as one. So within this word Shema, we have the word Shem, and part of the Shem that needs to be shared with on this, if you've seen teachings before, you've heard me say it many, many times. Shem means, in its definition, it has the idea of a definite and conspicuous position. It is connected to Shamayim, which is the word for heavens, a loftier abode. Think of our consciousness of the waters above versus the waters below, which is the chaos, the veil of forgetting. So coming above that, being in the heavenly waters above, where we are out of the veil of forgetting into the place where we've increased our consciousness levels. It also means a mark or a memorial of individuality. So Shem, even though we are walking into the oneness principle, recognizes that we each have a vehicle. We all have an individual setting, even though we're working in the oneness principle. And it means, by implication, honor, authority, and character. So that is all contained within this word Shema about paying attention and being obedient to that which we learn, which literally means to put it into practice, because change does not happen without application. My husband has said that 100 times, 100 different ways in our household, and I am thoroughly convinced of that principle as myself, because I am taking these things and applying it. Just like trying to work out, if you read a book, it doesn't do any good. You actually have to go out and do it. Push some weights, go for some walks, hikes, runs. Similar practices, it does do you good to hear us with these interpretations, but really to get the most out of it, to apply it, would be you to look at these scriptures yourself and begin excavating them. So, what is also connected in here is the constituent letters that actually spell the word meaning I. So this word right here, talking about, again, connecting it to the sheep that are going through the teachings that are more than enough for them to deliver themselves from their weak and feeble position, compressing light through the instruction that gives them power to enter into the intimate chambers, is given to those who have the eyes to see and the ears, let me highlight it, the ears to hear, and then put it into action and be obedient. Isn't that quite fascinating? I absolutely love this. So I was excited to get to that point. So again, in the beginning portion of it, we were talking about that we have the living water teachings, we have the fires of purification, which are both mother and father's teaching. Mother presents herself first. Father is hidden behind because the constituent letters of this symbol is a mem and a mem sophit. You got to enter in through mother first. This will give you the eyes to see how to elevate yourself out of that lower flesh nature, which then gives you the ability to grasp the hold or the power that's giving through Father, through his vision, while you are in your flesh suit. So this is specifically talking to the sheep, and what are we going to be doing that's more than enough, that is easy to learn, to be able to help you, to empower you while you are walking in the flesh. Then we have the word ana, which is these three letters right here. This is the root, and this is the word for eye. But it's a little bit deeper. In the Hebrew, you would hear ani or anoki. In Aramaic is ana. And I'm not going to go into the differences right now because we will address that and have addressed that in other Hebrew teachings that we've done, and we're specifically dealing with the Aramaic right now. But ana, this is often used as a copula, and a copula is a phrase that links the subjects of a sentence to a subject complement, such as the word is or not being. So, like the sky is blue, or another phrase being it was not being used. So, that's what a copula is. This comes from Latin, meaning connection and linking of words. So we have together and fasten. So together and fasten. So this is a copula, even though it is I and we, it means connecting something together. So what are we connecting together? If this word is a copula, which you can see in the language that it is, this is absolutely beautiful. I love this. I get so excited. So, we were talking about the intimacy of the king and queen when they enter into the chamber. So, the connecting point is from Shema to Yada. Oh, I can't wait until I can get you up to speed and we can like go through these a lot quicker because we will have such parties, champagne going off everywhere because of these little nuggets that we're finding. This is talking about the connection of those here and who obey, those who are of the Shamayim that are connected to the name, having honor, authority, and character, that have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, is connected to yada, which is intimate knowing through experience. Again, what we share with you is called the path of the arrow. It is the mystic path. It is called the straight path from the kingdom all the way to the crown. And this word yada, you might know this in the phrase Adam knew Eve. So think about it, it is meant to be used even euphemistically. And I just love this. So it's intimate knowledge through experience. So in Aramaic, this word itself means to know, realize, understand, be aware of, to make known, to be evident, to inform, so inward formation, to be recognized and acknowledged. So again, the copula of Anna, connecting those who have the eyes to see and ears to hear, connected to intimate knowledge, which this yada is connected to the Greek word gnosis. So we are talking about the sheep that are going to have gnosis, the sheep that are going to have intimate knowledge and understanding, recognizing what this process is, and for inward formation to be able to actually understand it. I think it's beautiful. We link that back to the Hebrew root where this word came from. It means to ascertain by seeing. So, seeing the language, the movements of the letters. And it means, like I said, euphemistically, but also inferentially, meaning observation, care, recognition, but also causatively, instruction and designation. And also, on the negative side of it, as the language is in dual nature, in duality, it means punishment, to know intimately what punishment is. But again, I'm going to connect this back to Mother's teaching because one of the things that Mother does to help us in our inward orientation is that when we are beast like and we are not becoming and we are doing things that are harmful to other people, that's usually when there's some sort of punishment that is brought forth. For me, I got little swats on my hind end, or I got a knuckle sandwich on the top of my head, or I got timeouts, or I got grounded, keys taken away from my car, grounded from the phone, etc., etc. So that's the opposite side of this. But we are now seeing that we've moved past mothers. So this has nothing to do with punishment because once you've met mother's requirement of the golden rule, you don't do those things anyway because you've learned how to operate, how to treat people the way you want to be treated. So this is about the intimate knowing that is coming from the power of Father giving us his vision in becoming, as that vision is connected to becoming queen. So I know this is connected to the Queen of Heaven. If you haven't heard this before, this is probably something that might be shocking to you because we were told that the Queen of Heaven was bad. It is not. The Queen of Heaven is the status of those who meet the requirement to sit at the right hand of Father. Think of Yeshua. The Queen of Heaven is connected in, I think it was Deuteronomy 30:33, about those who are coming, who sit on the right hand, the righteous ones. King Josiah eradicated the Queen of Heaven, which was a status. Think of the Asherah poles, the Asherim connected, believe it or not, to the Christmas tree. The Asherim poles were actually connected to the Christmas tree that would be lit up, which is a representation of the Queen of Heaven. So this is connected to Asherah. This is very important for us to be able to connect to this. And again, having to do about intimate knowing through experience, which is gnosis, da'at in Hebrew, the hidden sephirot on the tree of life. How are you guys doing? Are you following me? This is it's pretty amazing stuff that we're looking at right now. Yes, Renee Gates, and I'm going to tell you why very quickly. Sorry, I'm sidetracking here because I saw this comment. The champagne bottle reference. Joe and I are very similar in how we express ourselves. So my husband was referring himself to a flat beer and to me as a champagne bottle. That when I get excited, I just go crazy. I'm very, very I'm very expressive, as you can tell. I cry, I laugh, I giggle. It's just me. So, anyway, that's why. And so it's a champagne bottle because she and I both share that. And I love it dearly. It makes me smile. David, I'm happy to see that you are in the house. I appreciate you being here. You are an amazing person, and I'm really glad that we met. He is a friend of ours in Colombia. He has a lot to share. So, whatever he's sharing on the stream, I love that he brings another flair and a flavor to this because we are connected intimately through the language, and our hearts are knit together as one. So, with our champagne bottles and our bubbles exploding, because we just talked about the intimate knowledge, this yada is in the static form, meaning that it is something that needs to be activated. It is full of potential, but it is telling us what we need to do in order to activate this intimate place. Again, I love it. So, this root word itself, even in its static place, is telling us how to make it into kinetic energy where we are actually affecting and changing ourselves. So, when we look at the letters themselves, what are we seeing? Well, it shows that the power, we must receive the vision that is being given to us. You have to hold out your hand to receive it. It is being extravagantly given to us, and it's meant for us to go through the door of our inner self to reveal to us the weak and feeble position, This is actually tapping a deep well of information on the inside, because that's really where change comes from. It's on the inside. That's where the kingdom is. We're tapping a deep reservoir within us that will show us where we are weak and feeble so that we can actually deliver ourselves. Again, it's from the work and deed, because the yod also means the work and deed of our hand. So we take the vision, the work and deed of our hand. There's how you spell this little symbol right here. Yod Dalet is the constituent letters for this little symbol. So it's the work and deed of our hand. We must deliver ourselves from the weak and feeble nature on the inside, which is ego, which is actually the place of the lower nature that we have within us, all of those lower base frequencies of anger, frustration, guilt, shame. Just think about all those that don't put us, those are on the force side, not in the power side. You switch over to power when you have courage. So the courageous few that are willing to learn these things and to challenge the narrative, you're shifting in the right direction because you've been delivered of the lower frequencies. You cannot be controlled and manipulated because you've dealt with your fear. This gives you the eye to see, intimate knowing. So it tells us what we need to do. Then we have the copula again. So now, what is this connecting to? And I didn't tell you before, the copula where we were, what this connecting place, it showed the vav added on the front. So it means that in order to do the hearing and the seeing with the intimate knowledge, you first must connect. This is on the prefix. You must connect to mother. Mother teaches us how to be humble and how to be teachable, because humility is actually teachability. They go hand in hand. So when we look at this copula, let's go through letter by letter. What is this saying? Well, remember when I was sharing with you the covenant of the pieces here? We see this again in this copula, this word I and we. And so it is the division, seamlessly divided, mother and father, who are one, because Aleph is the symbol of one. It also means 1,000. So this is connecting us directly to the Mashiach, the Mashiach anointing in the unified field, mother and father. And how does this connect? Well, it shows you the nun again. This nun has to do with the seed of life. It has to do with progeny. It has to do with sprouting newness, a strong base to stand upon. And because it's risen, so remember, this was our fallen flesh. We had the eyes to see and the ears to hear how to deal with our fallen flesh. This is now dealing with risen flesh, and it represents the spiritual path. So mother gives us the spiritual path that we walk upon to lead us to Father. I and we are one. So this copula connecting us, the intimate knowing, to this word right here. Pop over and see if you guys have any questions. If you could please make sure that your comments are in lowercase, because I'm looking for the uppercase ones. I do appreciate it's easier to type in than the caps. But if it's, oh, wait a minute, you do have, or maybe not. Thomas, I think you're asking me a question. We have gone through this, by the way, about who Hillel is, what they translated as Lucifer, the son of the morning, which is actually Hillel, which means of the light. The Catholic Church did a really bad job of putting in Lucifer and creating imagery of something to stay away from and scariness, when really it is light that is bringing us light. So if you would like to go to our playlist, we have a whole thing talking about Hillel and connecting it to Lucifer. So we are connecting to Hillel, to the light. We've also shared how the light and the dark, the Lila and Hillel are the actual same words. Lila, light and dark, and we were sharing that, and I even shared that with you earlier with the letter Kuf. So it's all connected. It all is connected to all. We're just showing you fractals and portions of light that lead to all. So I can't quite. I don't know why it's not showing me this, or I'm having difficulty seeing some of these messages. For some reason, it just doesn't allow me to see them very well. I'll have to wait until you scroll up a little higher so I can see this. What was the letters for voice? Voice, it was Kuf Lamed Yod. It's the third letter in the verse. So now we have the copula. I'm not going to go back over those. If you want to restart the stream up when we're done, I don't want to go over those because we're many words down the line and we're already an hour and 10 minutes into this teaching. So, but it's all in there. I went into great detail. So let's take a look at what the copula is connecting the two of these together. And what we see here in this, I'm going to show it to you because I want you to see it for yourself. We have actually a standing, let me scroll this down so you can see it. We actually have a standing lamed by itself at the root. And so at the root, here we have a teaching shepherd of life. It means authority. It means those who are going to instruct the way of the living water teachings that are the doors, which means they are going to open up the revelation to you and instruct you in the way of light. And what has been added on the suffix side, so again, we were talking about the power that is given to us through the Father's teaching. We've seen that several times here. It's his revelation must come, and it's going to be revealed by teaching shepherds that come to present this information to you, that you must connect to, that produces this vav on the suffix side means meekness. So when it was on mother's side, we were talking about humble and teachable. This is meekness, which is power under control, because there's a lot of power that is given through the Father's teachings, and it is meant that we would have power under control while we are in our flesh suit walking here, until this is changed into a higher flesh form through the spiritual. We still have to deal with our lesser flesh form, but these teachers are going to come. So again, this is connecting the intimate knowing with the instructions of the Father's teachings that will be revealed, so that you can connect to them, being pierced by them, because it's also a vav is a something that pierces us. Remember what I was sharing about with the dalet being pierced with that which is necessary to produce new life within us, so that that power is under control while we are in the flesh. Now, moving on to the very next word. Well, actually, before I go a little bit further, I did do a little bit more digging because I thought this is important that we see this. The last three letters are actually a word. So remember, there's words hidden within, and what is hidden is the Hey Vav Nun, and the Hey Vav Nun is actually a Hebrew word that has this meaning: riches, wealth, and enough. It also means to dare and to venture, as in a daring journey or an undertaking. As a pioneer, I've called you brave ones. And so synonyms of this as a venture is going on an expedition. Let's try it one more time. An expedition, an adventure, a journey, a voyage, a trek, odyssey, wandering, and a journey and exploration where we are searching. We're on a crusade and a mission as a pilgrimage. So that is what Hevav Nun means to us. So riches and wealth as a venture that we take as pioneers and brave ones. And we are doing that through the instruction that is being given to us. So when I've said that it's an adventure, exploration, that's exactly what the teachings are bringing to us, that are being revealed to us. So I didn't want to pass that on because it was something that I actually dug out this morning, looking a little bit deeper. Then as we move on to the next, we're down to the last three words. We have one that means he, it, and is. He, it, and is. And we will see that right here. But it's very interesting because the word itself in its root, I'm going to highlight the letters so you can see it, is hey and the vav. So in its static nature, it would say, here's revelation, come, you need to connect to it. But look what got presented. So what presented to us is, once again, saying, connect to Mother in humility, find the spiritual path on the inside. Whenever a letter is placed on the inside of the root word, this is connecting to you on the inside at the heart level where source power dwells. You as a creator being This is the sacred space of the heart. And so this is a spiritual journey that must be taken within the heart space, connecting us to our source creator power. So connect to Mother in humility and teachability, and this revelation will come to you to reveal that spiritual path, that place, the seed vision that is being placed to produce heirs, heirship, perpetuity, connected to the meekness principle while we are in the flesh. So this is really the power that is being given to us by finding the spiritual path in source creator spiritual journey that we take on the inside. And again, this confirms this copula here with I and we, the spiritual path on the inside. So it's revealed by the teaching shepherd of light to find that spiritual path on the inside while you are walking in your flesh suit in the material world. How are you guys? How are we doing? I'm going to scroll quick and see if I've missed any messages. What's the meaning of the letters? Okay, nope. Looks like we're doing pretty good. I'm going to continue moving on. And yes, Joe, I agree. It is a beautiful journey that we are on. Absolute beautiful journey that we are on. So now we're going to move on to the last two words. And hold on just a second here because I need to plug myself in. I didn't realize that was on battery. There we go. It won't die on us now. So the last two words that we're going to deal with is this one right here. And this has been translated so that you can see it for yourself: to come and to bring. The root of this is Aleph, Tav, Aleph. So the lump of clay form, where it is static in nature. This is a wonderful word. Aleph, Tav, Aleph is connecting us right to the language. But what do we see in the presentation? Well, it shows us that the second Aleph, the secondary Aleph, has been removed. And that is because the sheep at this point, because that's what was identified at the beginning, they still had a weak and feeble position that they were given power to overcome because of their fallen flesh. And within the fallen flesh, which is attached to our ego, they are still getting to learn how to deal with that. And because it's coming and bringing, this is directly connected to the Aleph Tav. And the Aleph Tav is a summary of the language itself. We went over yesterday that in the beginning was created the Aleph Tav, Elohim. So this is the sacred languages from the first letter until the last letter, the beginning and the end, and in Greek, the Alpha and the Omega. And so this is our spiritual journey through every single letter, the pathway through the 22 letters that give us the power to deal with our fallen flesh. And it means the strong teachings of the covenant, or the strong leader of the covenant. And we shared with before that the Aleph is a representation of the Christ anointing, starting as unified, but then ending up in the thousandfold measure of those who are instructed, that have the authority to speak the language that brings revelation, that brings us to the place where we are marked with the covenant, which is a sine wave signature frequency change, exempting us from judgment because we learn how to connect to one another through unconditional love. So the language itself, the Aleph through the Tav, is the beginning and the end of our journey that will give us power from the Father, because he gives us the paths and direction through his teachings how to deal with the fallen flesh. Because again, Mother helps us tame it. The Father really helps us to be able to eradicate those things that keep us divided from one another, so that we can enter into the oneness unified field, because that is part of the sheep and what their need is to become. Last word that we are going to cover means after and behind. Actually, there is one more thing that I do want to share with you, another hidden thing that is probably important for you guys to see, because I just saw this morning, because I've been looking at this verse for a couple days wanting to share it. There's something else that happens with the Tav that is very unique in this letter. And there's many times you will find the Tav actually in placed within the inside of the root word itself. So I've highlighted this. The letters that aren't highlighted, the Aleph, Yod, Nun, actually mean, it means Yea, yes, truly, certainly, but if, however, but it means something else. This is a huge piece. And I can't believe I was going to skip it. This word ein means to be nothing, to not exist. So the process in the word before is dealing with our fallen flesh, or even in this word, the power to deal with our fallen flesh, which is connected to our ego. And it shows us that when the covenant is placed on the inside, there are three marks. There's mark on the mother's side, there is mark on the father's side, connected to the Sarah messengers. The tav that is added on the inside is source creator. So when you have the mark from source creator, you have become nothing because you become one. This is connected. This is the same root word connected with Enoch. He was, and then he was not. Let that sink in. He was, and then he was not. He was no more. He was taken up. This is the activation of the Merkaba. When you have connected to Source Creator within, you have become nothing. So self has been diminished so much that you have now gone into the place where you have ascended up and out of your flesh suit because you've learned to become nothing. And how did you do that? Through the process of the Aleph Tav. You went through the instructions. You can actually teach them. You've been a teaching shepherd that speaks the revelation. You've been given the power of the Father where you have been diminished in your flesh state and have become nothing, which is the power to be just like Enoch. This is the same word used when Joseph was in the well, when he was dealing with his prideful ego nature. Same word, huge principle. Are you guys connecting with that? Because this is really, really incredible being able to see this because it's the third Tav. It's interesting that the 6-6 principle that people have talked about that is bad, it is not. It has to do with body, soul, and spirit. 6 times 3 is 18. 1 plus 8 is 9. It means completed and perfected. And so 6 is the Hebrew symbol Vav. So Vav, 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 connected in the body, soul, and spirit. Tav, to spell the letter Tav, is Tav Vav. So when you've connected in the covenant of mother's teaching, seraphic message, father's teaching, seraphic message, and source creator on the inside, you have all three marks, meaning that you have completed the journey. This is the mark that we are all wanting, that the minimum requirement of the Chayutha, the beast of Revelation chapter 13, is to get the Father's mark. But this has not happened yet in this verse. But it is saying that if the sheep who have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, to grasp a hold of these teachings, the revelation of the Father, where they're standing in humility and meekness, that the spiritual path will be prepared for them on the inside so they can make that journey with Source Creator so that they can become nothing. I love this. The Ein, the power to become Enoch. I don't know about you, but I just get really overwhelmed with this stuff. And it's just my joy to be able to share it with you. This leads us to our last word. And then we'll be shutting down because we're already at almost an hour and a half. I'm taking longer on these things because there's so much I don't want to miss. And I love being able to be in your frequency. I love being there with you in the same place. It's very sacred to me, means a lot. So thank you all for being here with me. The very last word has to do after and behind, to come and bring after and behind. Now, this is very beautiful to see what's going on here. The root of this is Aleph Tav Resh. Aleph Tav Resh. But again, because we are dealing with the fallen flesh still here, that is the language, the Aleph through the Tav, that gives us the power to deal with the fallen flesh that says that we're separated. The Aleph could not be here. The Aleph couldn't be present because the word before it, as this means to be after was dealing with the fallen flesh. So the Aleph Tav are coming and bringing the power to deal with fallen flesh, so that in the root status, the Aleph would have been there, but the Aleph isn't because you're still dealing with. So what was put into place was the Bet. The Bet has to do with building. It's from the word bana, which means to build. And this is the root of the word ben, which means son, to build. It has to do with building up the family as well. The Bet has to specifically do with the inside. So this is telling us that the sacred languages, the Aleph through the Tav, the power to deal with our flesh, is meant to build us on the inside, the Bet. And because the Bet has the Bet Tav in it, which you can see actually right here, but the Bet Tav is the 222. So the code 222, if you see it all the time, if it's part of your being, 222 is the two paths of the 22 letters, the Hebrew and the Aramaic, that are building our temple. The Bet is specifically also connected to the temple, the Bayit, which is a Hebrew idiom for the temple. We are the temple. So this is building us up in the spiritual path, a highly spiritual principle, because the letter Bayit itself, the noon has been removed, which means it has nothing to do with our flesh whatsoever. It doesn't have to do with progeny because it's building our temple. We cannot build the temple for our sons and daughters. We cannot build it for our mothers and fathers. It's a personal act, the work and deed of our own hand to build ourselves spiritually up. We teach our children in the way they should go. The seraphim messengers, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, teach us up to way to go so that we become seraphim, but it is our own work. Then we have the Bet Tav, which means daughter. This is a beautiful word because it is ones who have built themselves through the covenant, who have gone from being the son to the daughter. Again, these are frequency changes that happen within us because Ben is Ben Nun, which is a fallen flesh nature. Bet Tav, the fallen flesh is gone. Now we have the covenant that we are connected to. It is a daughter. It's the son who builds through the linear, and it is the daughter that fills up the structure. So that should help connect some dots with you between the masculine and the feminine. So the son builds the structure itself, builds the external house, the daughter fills it up. So this is showing us that afterwards, if you go through the proper process through the instruction, your house will be completed through the son and the daughter that does what? Does that make sense? I'm hoping you're tracking with me. So going through this process through the son and the daughter then does what? The resh is there, and it means to raise you up. Head, top, first fruit leaders, chieftains, but it also means being poor and destitute. So those who were once poor and destitute, if they go through the process of the 222 journey and are building themselves up, going from the sun linear, daughter spiral, will have a completed built building that will be raised up. No longer a man laying down in the wilderness, but one that is standing up in sovereignty, that has been given power from the Father. And these are those who give service to others instead of service to self. So it is showing with us that the sheep at the very beginning are those who are going to have the eyes to see how to raise themselves up, spiritually building themselves up into the oneness principle, where they have the ability to come and go. And why? Because at that point, when they have gone through the process and they've raised themselves up and have been given and established in the power, which means that they can also give the power, then they actually become teaching shepherds of light. But we must deal with the fallen flesh nature first so that we can enter into the oneness principle. That is pretty flippin' amazing. It's a huge verse. I don't have anything more to share on that, except that if you guys have any questions for me about what you have been seeing here, oh, Quantum 369, I just am super happy to see you because you have been on my mind for weeks. Weeks. Bet Tov, by the way, just to let you know, thank you for saying that. or asking that question. I'm glad that I got through there to be able to come see it. The Bet Tov means the good house, the good house. And Tov being a Tet, Vav Bet means one who has wrestled, that was surrounded and hedged in, surrounded in the mud of the world, that grasp a hold of the seraphic message in duality, that raised themselves up, connecting within, and built themselves, built their temple. They are now the good house. So I hope that answers your question of what you were saying or asking on that. I just happened to see that. And I didn't mean to make you cry. I am just so happy to you. It's like I said, you've been on my mind for quite a while right now. Let's see. You guys have just like so amazing comments. You've made amazing comments here. I'm going to have to go through some of your comments. Is there anything else that you guys actually want to ask me right now? Because if you do, this is a perfect time to ask questions because I am here. I am opening it up for you. If some of you guys need to leave because we've been going for an hour and a half, I bid you adieu. Shalom, shalom. I'm going to stay on here for a few minutes to be able to talk about this. Actually, you know what? I am going to make a comment that my friend Keys to My Heart shared. I could just see this right now about the trident. I'm glad that you actually brought that up, and even with Shiva, because there are many other religions that the Hebrew and Aramaic language are totally connected to. And with the trident itself, this is the pattern of the sacred Hebrew wedding. You actually have the entering in to the covenant of promise. It's called the blood covenant, where we cross over the threshold. That is the first phase of being able to enter into the ketubah. So this is a huge process. This is establishing who has authority over you, which is God entering into mother's teaching, where we learn the principles of how to become uh, to become the bride itself. The second phase is where we actually come and enter into the betrothal period itself. This is done, if you want to connect it. I'm not going to connect it to the 7 feast day cycle or the 7 cycle of the book of the law. This is specifically the three feast days connected into the book of the covenant. They actually have different names than the 7 feast days that are mentioned in the book of the law, because this is all about the Hebrew wedding. And so the second one has to do with the Feast of Bechorim. And Bechorim is the Feast of the First Fruits. This is actually when they would come out and they would do a mikvah, a water baptism, where they would baptize themselves, going forward into the water, not the way that Christianity does by having somebody else dunk you behind, but going forward because you baptize yourself, because you are in a sovereign stance of doing it, having the waters cleanse you, where the water goes downstream. It's a change in status and you're letting it cleanse you. Think of the waters of cleansing. Okay. So the covenant of promise, where you enter in with the ketubah, covenant of promise has to do with the brazen altar, where you're burning up the beast ego nature, because you're entering in so that you too can become one at some point. So we've got the first feast, which is not even Pesach. It's not Passover. It's the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And when you go look at it, it has to do with matzah. It has to do with finding the living water teachings. That's what the first feast is. Second feast is the Feast of Bechorim, the first fruits, where you are doing your mikvah. You have entered in as a public display, where you have entered into the betrothal state, where now you are learning to become queen. This is beautiful progression here. So then after that feast, which is coming up, by the way, when you've entered into that feast day as a public declaration, then you work on continuing making your garments of light. And that leads us to the Feast of Asif or Asifim. Asif, which means the Feast of the Ingathering. And this is incredible because it's Asaph, which is Aleph, Samek, Pei. Sof or Sof means the end. So it has an aleph on the front. So this is where, oh my gosh, I'm going to cry. This feast is the place where when you finish at the end of your journey, you've entered into the place of oneness. It's the bridal chamber. It's the intimate chambers where you've entered in as king and queen, and you experience intimacy. And like I was sharing with you before in the verse, we were looking at the word yada, the intimate knowing, which was static in that verse because it had to have the teachings come first. Because if you remember, it was yada and then it was the lamed, hey, vav, nun. So in order for the intimacy to come, the teachings, the instructions must come, which then reveals to you how to connect to Father, which means the preparations of the flesh to get into the fall feast, the feast of the ingathering, where at the end of your journey through the betrothal process, you enter into the place of the intimate chambers, into the Holy of Holy, where we are gathered together in the unified field, where we take upon ourselves the Mashiach anointing, the thousandfold measure, now at the place where we have been given the staff of authority because we are now kings and queens. We have gone through the living water teachings. We can teach it and we can speak it and we can bring forth the revelation. Because after they exited out, after 7 days, which is a reference to divine spiritual perfection in creation, they come out new. Ah! I hope that you guys are getting that because it's incredible to see what the journey is. And I will get back to the sacred Hebrew weddings because there's so much that I still want to teach on it. But I got sidelined because I've needed to bring some of these truths to you about these verses. My husband needed to bring some of these truths so that you could hear it, Shema, hear it, and have it begin to shift you on the inside, to raise up your consciousness level, to bring more light in so that there would be a desire to enter into the languages. Because if we can't forecast, if we can't broadcast to you a vision, the Yod, the powerful vision, then there's no reason to have, there's no means or direction as to why. And the why is what is so most important. If you don't have the answer why, then why the heck do you want to even take the time to learn the letters? And that's why we decided to sideline some of those teachings to be able to speak forth this frequency so that we could all begin to shift together. So that when we choose to enter in to the teachings, which would be a representation of the feast or the first feast of entering into the covenant of promise, the blood covenant, which has to do with compressing light within the blood, having to do with Adam, mankind, so we can become Adamah, one blood revealed, having light within. We needed to have a place that we could start that you guys would want to be drawn in. And so that's why we've been doing this. So I don't know what else that I can share with you guys here. I don't see that you guys have any other questions. When do I start teaching the letters? I am working on them. I know it seems like forever, but there's just some of these verses that needed to go out ahead of time. I am working on them right now. I spent like 3 hours on the Aleph itself yesterday. I am going to spend this afternoon for another 2 or 3 hours working on it. We will be doing it through a PowerPoint presentation. I am going to do it on a live stream, probably not on this platform. I need to be able to kind of limit it. Right now, I have Zoom capability. I will be recording it, so those who can't join, but I will be giving a link out for them. I will be doing it on a Zoom platform, and so I can be able to record it. And I can only right now, with the plan that I'm on, I can only have 100 people on at a time. So that is all my budget can afford right now. So I will let you know when those start. But again, those are going to be recorded sessions as well that are going to be made available to others. I would like to start a Patreon community where we have our own place to go. Those who are actually entering in to the study itself, not looky-loos. I have no problem with looky-loos. Come on in and check this out all day long, because I'm hoping that the frequency of light and love will penetrate and start shifting and might be an answer of something that you need to move you out of your stuck position. But when we actually enter into the teachings, I'm going to have a separate platform for those who are serious that want to enter in to learn these things letter by letter. We'll start with Mother. We will show practical applications, and then we're going to go into Father's teachings. But I need to do it on a separate platform for those who are serious and not for the looky-loos. So I hope that makes sense to you. If you guys have any questions, and yes, please, 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 I really want this message to go out. And we get between 100 views and 200 views per video. And I think the most likes I've ever seen is between 25 and 30 likes. I know that some of you guys don't want this. You don't want it to show up on your YouTube channel, but you can hide your likes so that nobody sees what you're liking. But it would help the algorithms completely, because if you do believe in this message, YouTube looks at the like buttons, and if there's a lot of likes, it will put it out there for other people to see on their browsing and put it on their side filter. If you think that this message needs to go forth, that's something that you guys can do to assist us so that more people can get their eyes on this message. Because the more of us that are shifting, the more that we can bring the age of light and love in. We don't have to wait for what Jason Shirka said, that they said that it's going to take full 70 years for us to manifest that. You know what? I don't agree with that. And I'm putting forth my attention, because unless something happens to my body, 70 years, I'm 48. You know, I am planning on seeing this happen in my lifetime. I am pulling it down as much as I can, and this we can do together if we go ahead and start joining in together with this, because these languages are unlike anything that we have ever been shown before. And I keep thinking, what if this would have been given to Christianity in the very beginning instead of them keeping it from us? Of course, the religious institutions would no longer be necessary, but think about how different this world would be if we would have been taught that in the very beginning. So please hit like, please subscribe to the channel, please hit the notification bell. Anytime that we are going to be producing new information, you can get notice on that. And also pay attention to the reminders when we go on to the live stream so that you can join us. I'm trying to hit different times of the day. I really like the early morning hours because I like to start the day in the morning, but I know sometimes that's difficult depending on where you live. And it's difficult for me to do the afternoon broadcasts, but there'll be some that I'll try to do around the 2 or 3 o'clock time, which is very late for me since I usually get up between 2 and 3 in the morning. Anyway, I appreciate, Greg, what you're saying. That's why you're here, to compress and anchor in light. Absolutely. All of you that join with this, with your intention, agreeing with me on these interpretations, is bringing more light in. But it will be helpful when we can start doing it and studying it together, because even in your own personal time, what happens when you study the letters, you are actually putting it in the collective consciousness so that others can access it more easily. Because believe it or not, we are creating new neural pathways within the collective consciousness so that people can join into that stream. They haven't been there before. And if they were only for a select few. It wasn't enough for the stream. This is the highway that is being created in the collective consciousness. Ooh, that just gave me goosebumps. For the rest to be able to more easily access this. Because I'm telling you, the road was a hard one for Ken and I when we first started 5 years ago, trying to figure this out, what the Spirit was giving us. And so now we are much more confident in our ability because we can see more, we've compressed more light. But imagine what we can do if we all enter in, those who have a real heart desire to do this, and in your own personal study time, continue doing that for the rest. This is truly service to others, in that what we are doing to ourselves, we are doing and making it available for everyone else to be able to jump in on. So I really, really appreciate it. And again, if we see it, we can become it. If we set our intention for it and cast out that highway, then we can make it possible by building these bridges first within us, in our own collective consciousness, so others can enter in as well. Because really, this has nothing to do with religion at all. This has to do about the spiritual process, the spiritual journey that is being made available the spiritual journey on the inside, so that we can remember that we are Elohim creators, so that we can affect the matrix code around us and change the narrative. It does not have to be playing out the way we see it. It does not have to, because we can break agreement with that and start our own new pathway and start our own new way of people being able to live in this world without having fear control and manipulate us, and without having the hidden powers that chose to take the left-hand path that do not have light. It is up to us to flip the poles to be the principalities and powers of this world that will be the heel to their head instead of them being the heel to ours. This is a huge shift, and you guys are being a part of it by being here with me. So I really appreciate you guys being here. We went really again long, but there was a lot I wanted to share, and it's just really good frequency vibes. Hey, Joe, I see that it's 5:30 in the morning. That's great. So our partners in Australia, this seems like a better time to be able to share. So maybe I'll start doing broadcasts at 12 so that you guys can do it noontime hour for people, afternoon, not so early, but it's nice to have you here. My support and friends from Australia. All right, you guys, I love you very much. Shalom, shalom, and namaste.